Hey residents of Meepletown, we are packs of wolves and we are going after prey in the Alpha by Bicycle Games. So in this game, we're going to be competing for region dominance, chucking dice, and seeing if we can get the most food. And whoever has the most food in this game are the most dominant pack and win. So I say let's just get this thing to the table and check out the Alpha by Bicycle Games. All right, Meepletown, so we have the Alpha set up and we are ready to play now. These turns are very straightforward. We're going to be taking these wolves that we have and we're going to be placing them one at a time on these prey, the deer, the elk, or the scavenge, livestock, fish, or beaver. And whoever has the area majority is going to have the potential to get some of the fish here. Now, there's a little bit more to it. We can tie and then have to do this little fight or share thing, which is pretty neat. But all we're going to do, as I said, is we're going to place these out. Now, if we want to go to the deep forest for these bigger animals, we do have to pay a food to head that direction. So this is going to track our food. And in this game, whoever has the most food at the end wins. So, for example, if I am this green player here, and let's just go ahead and dive in and play the game. Let's just say the green player chooses to take one of their wolves and is going to go for this nice elk. So, in order to go to the deep forest, they're going to go backwards one and then place their wolf right there on the elk. It is now, let's just go to the red person's turn. Now, one thing that is interesting is that you do have an alpha, which counts as 2. So when to play that is probably one of the more interesting decisions in this. So this player decides, you know what, they're going for that one. I'll go for this deer here, and I'll go out there. Now the blue player over here says, all right, well, while they're going for those, let me try to establish dominance on this beaver and not pay any, because it doesn't cost any to go to these down here. Now, this player now looks at that elk and says, you know what, I'm going to pay one more food to really establish dominance on this, hopefully. And so another player is going to have at least 3 on there to tie them to have a chance for that elk. I will also mention that this scavenge spot, you can put one wolf and all the wolf packs can place, and they're going to guarantee 1 food. And in this livestock region, only 1 wolf can actually be placed here. So, with that being said, I think that this player here, let's see. Let's just do something different. I think it would make sense for them to go and do the same thing I did that. But let's say they decide, you know what, I'm going to compete for this elk, though they're going to go backwards quite a bit, and now they're 1 point away from there. This player decides to take the lead on the deer by placing that and placing their alpha with 2 there. We're back over to the green player. The green player does not like that they're getting close at all, and so maybe the red player just wanted to kind of force them to use some more, who knows. So go ahead, the green player places that there. The red player now decides they don't like that they did that with the deer. The red player is just going to put one on the fish here and just say, you know what, I want to make sure I get something this turn. This player right here decides to go ahead and go back up here again to really establish dominance there. Now, the green player, having some decent dominance here, decides he'll fight for the beaver. The red player decides that she is hurting right now because she's not leading here or here, but decides that she's going to go all out and force this player as to really take the lead there. This person here decides, well, if you're going to make me, I'm going to do that. This green player is going to now go ahead and take this. Now green is not doing too bad because these people are quibbling over this place right here, so they're going to go ahead and take the lead here on the beaver token. The red player sees that they're 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So they could spin the next 2. That's what their choice is right here to tie them, but all they have to do is spin 1 more deer and they're going to get it. So the red player decides that she is going to let's see. And up here, she could place 2 more and attempt to go for the elk. She spread herself a little too thin and recognizes that and says, you know what, for this round, whatever. I'm just going to place it on the fish, make sure that I get that. This player then knows they have dominance there. They go ahead and say they're going to try to take the beaver. This player then can take the lead here, but also knows that they could tie it, but they say, you know what, I'm going to do that. This player goes ahead and decides to scavenge. And then finally, this player here decides that they are going to tie with the beaver. So this area is going to be tied, which is going to be pretty interesting. So now that that's done, we're going to go from smallest to largest here, and we're going to see who has the dominance, which is the most wolves on the place. And we're going to also then roll dice. So this player is going to scavenge. So they're going to put their wolf back here, and there's no conflict at all. You can put one die there to make sure that one wolf there to make sure that you get one food. So they'll move up one on the food track. There's no livestock. The fish now, the red player is going to take this die, and they have dominance. They're not even competing with anyone else, and they roll an X, which means the fish got away and they got nothing. And their wolves are going to go back here. All right. So then we're going to move over here to the beaver. Now this is interesting because we're going to roll this die. And we're going to see how much food we're going for. All right, so now the beaver could have gotten away or whatever. If you look at the percentages here, you've got a 2/3 chance of getting the food, and you'll get whatever food number, the amount of food that is on the die. Or you got a 1/3, 33% chance of rolling this X, which means the food gets away, which is what we saw there. So now that we are fighting, we know for 4 food. This is interesting. So you have the prisoner's dilemma is what we're going to be having. You either... Both players or all players that have dominance here are going to fight for this. And so, or share it, and it's their choice. All you have is a token that says fight or share. If both players say fight, then both players actually take an injured wolf and put it over here, and no one gets the food. Now, if there was let's just say the red wolf was over here. If this happens, then the red wolf would actually get all the food as they've scavenged and they get the whatever's left because they both selected fight. Now, if one wolf chooses share and the other chooses fight, then the one that chooses fight gets all the food. And then finally, if they both choose share, then they would share this. And in this situation, because the number is even, they would both get 2. So this is not as much fun to do on this than as in real life. But let's just pretend let's just say that this player chose fight. This player chose share. They talked about it a lot and went back and forth. And this player gets angry because they decided to share. This player told them that they were going to share, but decided they were really going to fight. All right, whatever. So now that it's like this, that means that the green player then, because they fought and they shared, would get all the food, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's the end of that. And then we'll take the wolves back. Alrighty, and then what we'll do is we'll move over to the deer up here, and with the deer, scoot that over. With the deer over here, this player is in the lead, so they are gonna roll this dice. Oh no, fell off the table, or rolled off the table. So they rolled a 5, so the deer did not get away, and because they have dominance here, they have the most, they just simply get all 5 food. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That simple, and red gets nothing. All right, finally, we're going to move over to the elk here, and the green player will roll this die, and roll a 7, which means that he is going to get 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that is the end of the round there. Now, whoever is in the lead becomes the alpha, and that means that you're going to go first. Now, I'll just talk about a few other things that would happen in between turns. Now, let's just act like both of these players chose fight instead of fight and share. They would both have one of their wolves that would actually be injured. And they're going to have to wait a whole nother turn to then go to healing and then to be placed onto their board. So it's a little bit risky whenever you choose fight in that scenario because you could potentially lose one of those, which is a pretty big deal because everyone has 5 plus their alpha. So it's a pretty big. It's risky to choose fight for that exact reason. Another thing I want to point out is that you have this livestock area, which is really kind of a Hail Mary pass. If you go to this livestock area, only one wolf can actually be in this area. You have a 33% chance of rolling food and a 1/6 chance of actually rolling 12, which is a tremendous amount of food. You have a 50% chance of dying, and if you roll a D, your wolf is out for the rest of the game, which can be really stinky, especially if you're behind. It's kind of like kicking you while you're down, and now you've got a wolf out. Or a 1/6 chance here of, I know I'm doing fractions and percentages, so sorry. Together, a 1 in 6 chance of them running or fleeing away. So that's how the game is played. So let's talk about the art and the components for this game. All right, so I think the art is decent. I think it's clean. I think it looks okay. Nothing is just blowing my mind. I like the white backgrounds here and how clean they look, and the box cover looks pretty good, how it's nice and clean. This does not look good to me. I don't like this. This is just, the art's just, I don't know. To me, it's not my taste. I don't like that very much. The components though are cool, how you get these wolves, which are really nice. The dice are good quality. I will say that a lot of the colors are pretty similar, and so this is a complaint I would have. I'm going to pull out, I picked 3 of the ones that stand out the most, but these are some of the other colors that you have. And so if you're colorblind, if you have a hard time, if it's difficult to distinguish some of the colors, this could be a problem in the game. I think aesthetically, I like the muted tones and stuff, and the earth tones. I think that it looks cool, but they're really similar, and also some of the dice are really similar as well. As you can see here, I'll just put some of these down here, especially like, look at those two. Now you can tell by the C, I like how the C, I forgot to mention that. I'll mention that even though I'm talking about art and components. Each have a different C number here. So you can tell which die it is based on that, but they are pretty similar. And what I failed to mention was the carry-on. So if we would have rolled like a C4, which there's a 1 in 6 chance of that happening, you would be going for 4 food that round, and then there would be a carry-on, which is a guaranteed 4 food for whoever is the dominant species next round. So you'll be fighting for a guaranteed 4 food instead of a dice roll. All right, so again, art is, some of it I like and some of it I don't like. Like I don't like the board at all, and the components are nice quality. So let's talk about the gameplay. All right, so let's talk about gameplay. The first thing I want to point out is I did a 3-player game just to make it simple for the gameplay playthrough, but this game is much more interesting at a higher player count. Let me give you an example. These large animals do not come out in a 3-player game, but what these do is whenever you're placing them into the deep forest, you have to at least have 5 wolves on one of these in order to take it down. So, with that being said, a player may start going for it. No other players end up going for that one, and the other players say, you know what, if you want that large animal, you can place most all your wolves on there in order to get it, which I think that's actually decently interesting. The things that I like about the game play the most are the alpha token. So you have the alpha wolves, which the count is 2, and so when to play that can be interesting in the game. That's probably one of the more interesting decisions, but also that the prisoner's dilemma can be fun, trying to decide whether the person or persons that have dominance with you are going to play that share token. You're talking about it, you can bluff, you can have hoot and holler and kind of have some fun, or honestly, it depends on the group that you're playing with, because you can also play with groups that are just really nice. And if everyone's really nice, everyone's sharing the food, and the prisoner's dilemma isn't really all that exciting. So that part of it can be good, but also you have to have, I believe, the right group for that to be good. Now, some things that I don't like about the game. Here's the thing. I don't like how you can have dominance on a section, and then there's no dice mitigation whatsoever. On most of these sections, you're going to have a 66% chance of rolling something positive and getting food. You're going to have a 33% chance of whiffing on these. And it can be hugely discouraging when you get dominance in an area and you're super hype about it, and you chuck your die and you come up flat, the prey runs away, and you get absolutely nothing. And I think that you saw that in the gameplay section. And if you haven't seen that and you fast forward it, you should go back and check out a little bit of that gameplay, because the red player in the game kind of got hosed. She spread herself a little bit too thin, and then she had dominance in only one area, and then she rolled and came up nothing, and every other player rolled and got their food, and it put that player far behind. And that's another thing I don't like about the game, especially at the very beginning, because in order to go to the deep forest, you have to give up a food. So in that gameplay, the red player only has 3 food right now, and so she's at a huge disadvantage because she can only go to the deep forest 3 times this next round. So those bigger animals she can't get. She's going to have to focus on the lesser animals, while the other players could wholly go after those big ones, could potentially roll those dice again, get those, and be even further ahead. So this is a game, I believe, oftentimes it can be difficult to catch up, and it really depends on how the players are playing together. If they're playing probably optimally, they'll be talking about the player who's in the lead and say, we can't let this player have dominance anymore, and that's actually more fun when the game's played like that. And so the luck factor, I tried to play this. I thought this might be good for my children, for my kids, for my family. And so I asked my boys to play with me, my 12-year-old and my 10-year-old. And as we were playing the game, we got to the second round, and one of them was losing, and so he went to that livestock spot and said, you know what, I'm going to try to roll a 12, and came up and rolled death, and one of his wolves got kicked out. That's rough in this game. Like, you can go for that Hail Mary pass, but if you lose one of your wolves, that is very tough to come back on if other players aren't doing that, because for the rest of the game, they have more wolves than you have, and you can't get that wolf back. So that's rough, and that happened to him, and he was pretty much done at that point. He was behind by 6 or 7 or something like that, and he said, Dad, he literally said, I don't like the luck factor, because the reason that he was behind in the first place was he was dominant on 2 different spots and whiffed with the dice. Like, again, 33% chance both times, and he came up with X's, and he was like, this is just all luck, Dad. And he's like, I just don't like it. I asked my other son, is he enjoying the game? Do you want to keep playing? And he's like, it's just a lot of luck, and it's not that interesting to me. And so we literally had to quit. I tried to play with my family and they quit in the middle of the game. They didn't enjoy it. Now, I will say that I've watched other reviewers who really enjoy this game and have had a blast playing it and have had fun with their family. So this is just one guy's opinion, but the gameplay was just fell flat for me in this game. It's just not interesting for me to try to put these one at a time, these wolves around the board, chuck a die, and hope that you come up and get something good. And then you do have some of the interesting thing with the Prisoner Dilemma, but overall it just wasn't that interesting. So let me go into my final thoughts. Again, I enjoy the alpha and when to play the alpha because they count as 2. I also enjoy the Prisoner's Dilemma, especially if you're playing with the right group. But besides that, everything else just totally falls flat for me in this game. I don't enjoy just placing one wolf at a time. Go around the table, everyone places a wolf. Go around the table, everyone places a wolf. My 12-year-old son said something. He said, you know what, Dad, this would be a lot more interesting if the prey changed as over the course of the game. Nothing changes. You have the same prey the entire game, and you're going to do that for 5 rounds. And so he was just like, again, we got to that 3rd round. My sons were just bored, like, it's just kind of the same thing over and over again. And so I don't like that as well. And I don't like the luck factor in this game. I'm not a huge dice chucking person, but when there's really no mitigation for it, there's no way to, add a pip or get an extra, a better chance. You don't. You just roll a die, and you have, on most of them, 66% chance of getting something, 33% chance of getting nothing. And that's it, and there's really nothing that you can do about it. Yes, you have the carrion. Whenever that happens for the next round, you for sure can get some of those food. That helps a little bit, but overall, it just fell flat for me. All right, so when I look at the BGG rating scale, I'm going to pull this up on my phone here so I can tell you what this says. 6 is okay, we'll play if in the mood. Not really for me. 5 is slightly boring. Take it or leave it. If I'm being honest, I'm not even there with this game. 4 is not so good, but could play this again. 3 is bad, likely won't play this again. Honestly, I wrestle between a 3 and a 4 because I honestly likely will not play this game again. 4 is not so good. I just didn't enjoy it. This was just one I didn't enjoy. I was hoping my family would enjoy it. At least we could play together. They didn't enjoy it. So honestly, I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 10. This game is just really not for me. If you enjoy area control or trying to get region majorities, this may be one for you. If you want a lighter game that you can play with your family or your friends, and you think that so go back and watch the gameplay. If you skip forward to the final thoughts, I always encourage folks, go back to the gameplay and see, because one person's opinion, I may not like it, but you may absolutely love this game. But for me, it's a 3.5 out of 10. If you're enjoying our channel, we would love for you to subscribe to it. You can also go to meepletowngames.com and you can see our podcast over there, or search Meepletown on Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, all that stuff. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Those are all at Meepletown Games, and we're Board Game Geek Guild 3407. Thanks for coming down to Meepletown.
Thanks for joining us, and be sure to follow us on Twitter at Meepletown Games, and connect with us on the Meepletown Guild, Guild number 3407, at BoardGameGeek.com, and also subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel. And until next time, thanks for coming down to Meepletown.